traveling to the war-torn country of Iraq where murderous ISIS militias still operate, Sir Michael Palin had no idea the riskiest part of his visit might involve climbing an ancient spiral staircase. But, as he explains, he had good reason to feel genuine fear. The conical-shaped Mawiyah minaret at the Great Mosque of Samarra is more than 170 feet high with no railing, which offers little comfort or obvious safety to the brave souls who have climbed it for 1,000 years. One false step and you meet your maker. So no wonder the veteran traveler was struck by a horrible bout of vertigo while filming at its top for his latest series, Into Iraq. "I've been 15,000 feet up Everest, but going up this unprotected minaret was far worse," he admits. "Once I got on top, my first piece to camera was so shaky. I sounded about as relaxed as someone giving a confession after a criminal arrest." Thankfully, his vertigo quickly passed. "Once I'd done the second piece, I was absolutely fine. I loved being up there and I felt very safe." Might the trip, at 79, bookend his career as a professional traveler? Palin isn't sure. "People say, 'Where are you going to now?' I say the chemist," he smiles. "I'm not quite sure how much traveling I've got left to do. I feel enormously privileged and grateful that I've been able to do as much traveling as I have in the last 35 years. An extraordinary amount of interesting and exciting times, and adventure. But there's a certain point that you've got to be careful. Channel 5 seem to be quite keen on sending me to places where they can kill me. Undoubtedly, currently one of the world's most dangerous countries, Iraq has intrigued the former Python since he was 7 when his father gave him tales from the Arabian Nights. The stories of thieves, genies and sorcerers sparked a lifelong wanderlust." However, Palin's new documentary is not so much concerned with the past, but rather a desire to seek the truth about modern-day Iraq, which is so often diminished to being a land of bloodshed, war and brutal dictatorships. "I was driven by curiosity, and the thing that keeps me traveling is to go somewhere I've never been to before." Iraq, rather like North Korea, which he visited in 2018, has a sort of status as a country that failed in some way, he says. So, it was a country that was relatively new, where terrible things had gone wrong, and I wanted to see how the country had coped with it. He arrives in Turkey where he follows the river Tigris south across the border into Kurdistan and Mosul, which fell to ISIS hands in 2014 until its international liberation in 2017. From there, he journeys to Erbil, Tikrit, Baghdad, and Basra. The contrasts between the places are startling. He encounters frivolity and excitement in Iraq's New Year celebration in the small mountainous town of Akkar, where fireworks are ignited before a torchlit procession winds up the mountain at night. "It is a mix between Glastonbury and Apocalypse Now," he quips. Oil-rich Iraqi Kurdistan benefits financially from its close proximity to Turkey, and its capital city, Erbil, was flush with wealth and promise. During his stay, he meets Hudassar Kaug Abdul Rahman, an Iraqi Kurd, who explains how Kurds in Iraq feel more at home there than in Turkey. Kurdistan is a part of Iraq, and yet has a great deal of autonomy. "They have run their affairs pretty well," says Palin. "They have oil, so they get money from oil. It's more stable, so there's more investment." He was amazed by its affluence, which he didn't find in any other Iraqi city. The big oil companies have these shiny, green-tinted buildings," he says. "You can get any food you want, you can get a smart tailor who makes suits in traditional Kurdish style. They are very proud of being modern." Mosul, 50 miles northwest of Erbil, has a more troubled and fractious history. ISIS fighters destroyed countless buildings, among them a 1,000-bed hospital. Palin meets children living in the few homes still standing. An experience that leaves him close to tears. They'd had a terrible time and had lost lots of loved ones, had their houses smashed, and things that we couldn't contemplate here in our country. But there was still a welcome for you, people would still come and talk to you, and boys would let you use their catapult. That made it something of a high point in terms of human contact. In terms of human brutality, I suppose that was a low point. As he ventures further south, he finds a greater undercurrent of instability. Modern-day Iraq was created in 1920 by the British following the end of the First World War and the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. As a result, there remain huge differences between its people descended from different tribes and cultures. It's difficult to find national pride in a strong or obvious way, says Palin. Military checkpoints dominate the roads and there are ominous warnings about ISIS militia operating in the shadows. In Saddam Hussein's birthplace of Tikrit, he finds the dictator's crumbling palaces before being taken to a memorial for the Camp Speicher massacre, considered one of the worst atrocities in recent history. It was here in 2014 by the Tigris that 1,700 Shia military cadets were murdered in cold blood by ISIS, many of the young men were shot and pushed into the river. Others were buried in mass graves. Pictures of the young men who died line the wall nearby. It was a deeply depressing moment, Palin admits. There was a sort of disconnect. He left Tikrit soon afterwards but, admits, moving through Iraq meant taking precautions. We were told not to travel at night and not to go outside the hotel on our own because we might be targeted. I quite enjoy that evening period when you might go out and have a drink or just walk the streets and get the feeling of a town. And to be told we couldn't do that made me aware that there was a danger, a higher risk than any of the places I've been before. A self-proclaimed optimist, Palin didn't feel frightened at any point before or during the trip. It's worse when you're contemplating it from a distance and people are saying, "Oh, you shouldn't go there," he says. When I'm actually there, I meet people, smile, share the food and immediately you relax a bit. How did his family feel about him going to Iraq? My wife, Helen, is normally very supportive of my trips. The longer they are, the quicker she agrees, Palin jokes. But he admits his spouse, to whom he has been married for 56 years, had her concerns. She was really worried and I think that's reflected in the way Iraq is seen, he says. It was only 3 years ago that Palin underwent surgery to fix a leaky mitral valve, a small flap in the heart that prevents blood flowing the wrong way. He said at the time, "My heart scare reminded me that my body isn't indestructible and, if I want to keep it that way, I must know when to stop working as well as when to start again." His travels are not as epic as they were in the 1980s and 1990s when he made pole-to-pole, around the world in 80 days, and full circle. Still, traveling 1,000 miles in 3 weeks will definitely take its toll. Early on in this new series, he suffers a dizzy spell in a Turkish airport. It was momentary but proved disconcerting nonetheless. At the age of 78, with the new heart, I didn't know if I would be able to enjoy the journey as much because you need stamina and to do things that you would never normally do, which doctors will probably tell you not to do, he says. But the great thing was I found, even on that very first day, all sorts of feelings of revival and wanting to connect with places again, and a kind of restoration of the joys of travel, which is just seeing somewhere wonderful for the first time. He also experiences the warmth of Iraqi hospitality and is invited into people's homes to share their food, although only with the men. In most situations, he uses humor to diffuse awkward situations. At one security stop following a tussle over filming, higher-ranking officers decide they want selfies. Palin immediately dubs the spa checkpoint cheerful. Though hostility is more prevalent in the far south where religious militias proliferate. So we stayed in the town of Nasiriyah, he recalls. We arrived late at night and went to the hotel, and actually, the room was very comfortable. I woke up in the morning and I pulled the curtain back and there was a bullet hole in the window. He makes a joke about anti-British feeling or general poor service, but there is a serious point to the story. In the South, it was difficult to connect with people there in quite the same way as you could in Kurdistan or Baghdad. He finds hope, especially in Baghdad where he encounters competing poets performing satirical material about the government, something that would have been unthinkable in the not-too-distant past. It has made me aware that you can't just say, "Oh, Iraq, failed state, war, that's the end of it," he adds. This is a country that, like it or not, doesn't work that well, but it has to be there for the future. There are people who will believe very much in Iraq and, having been there, I feel I know more about their situation.